So, in the spirit of keeping up with NBA basketball this offseason, things have gotten interesting after a long period of silence, with the Knicks and the Timberwolves getting into a little bit of a mixer. Karl-Anthony Towns was acquired by the New York Knicks in exchange for Julius Randle, Donte DiVincenzo, and a first-round pick via Detroit. There are some protections on it. I believe it's top 10 or top 11 protected, so they're probably not going to get that pick conveyed until maybe 2 years down the line when the protections kind of lighten a little bit. But nevertheless, it has a lot of people up in arms, and I'm going to break down what I personally think about it because I have a mixed bag of opinions. With that being said, it's your boy Ray Tubes. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one. So first of all, looking at it from New York's point of view, I love the fit. It makes sense. Karl-Anthony Towns coming to them. Obviously, Mitchell Robinson is allegedly going to be out until probably January because of everything going on with his health. You still maintain Josh Hart, OG, Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson. You have some cap flexibility, and yes, you did take on Karl-Anthony Towns' massive contract, but it seems like their team structure is willfully, honestly, just comfortable taking in that deal. Whether it ends up putting them into the luxury tax or whatever the case may be, they want a contender. They want to be able to battle it out. This does kind of go against a little bit of their ability to just be depthy at the guard position because Josh Hart is probably a little bit more of a tweener. And yes, he does crash the glass a lot. So you're probably going to see him run a lot more minutes in between OG and himself. Precious is going to see some minutes. You might see some Marcus Morris mixed in there. Mitchell Robinson is going to be available really early. So you're going to see a lot of Precious getting some work in. Miles McBride, and then obviously Cameron Payne's going to find some ways around there. But it's going to be a lot of heavy minutes for that main core, to be quite honest with you. And while the Villanova Knicks only lasted but 2 months and 0 games, it was interesting to hear. Now, there were rumblings that allegedly from somebody's front office sources that actually Donte DiVincenzo was not the highest on it. And while he did, he was okay, but he just didn't really love the idea of being on the roster the same way as it was. He was unsettled. Because obviously you add Mikal Bridges, everybody would agree that Mikal Bridges is slightly a better player than Donte DiVincenzo, despite Donte DiVincenzo being the ideal 3-and-D wing. I believe he hit 283 threes last season, which should be good for third or fourth in the entire association as far as made three-pointers. So going from that and starting to getting sat on the bench, especially after all that you did in the postseason, playing as many minutes as he did, it probably isn't the most tempting offer to see. But honestly, them giving up the Pistons pick really didn't do much. I think that they're very well built to contend for a few years. Do I like Karl-Anthony Towns? I love the fit from the three-point shooting standpoint. Now, is he going to be Donte DiVincenzo from the corners? No, but from the top of the key, he offers a lot more, and on the wings also, he offers a lot more flexibility. Defensively, he bought in a little bit better. He's not going to be perfect at the 5 because we saw with Minnesota, the reason why they ended up adding Rudy Gobert from the Utah Jazz was because he just wasn't working out as great defensively, and it really put a cap on what Minnesota would be able to do. So I think that this will be a good temporary fix, but again, when you have Josh Hart, you have Mikal Bridges, and you have OG Anunoby as your bigger players also assisting you, there's not going to be a million blow-bys that end up just getting funneled into you and you have to stand your own. As long as he can hold his ground against bigs, which he showed, particularly in the playoffs against Nikola Jokic and even in spurts against guys like Kevin Durant, he's going to do fine, I believe. And if anybody has the ability to make him work well, I think it'll be Tom Thibodeau because they do have some experience having Thibodeau been the, I believe, head of basketball operations as well as the head coach for the Timberwolves some years ago. Looking over at the Timberwolves aspects of things, if you're a Timberwolves fan, I pray for you. I'm not ready to say that the Timberwolves took a step back, but their path to success is a little bit more difficult. Now, I understand that there's a issue apparently between two organizations or two groups of people that are in the ownership brass as far as do you guys want to pay the luxury tax? Do you not? What do you want to do about everything? How well do you value contention and what are you willing to do it basically? So a lot of people felt as though this was going to be inevitable. Karl-Anthony Towns, yes, he has a big contract. Yes, is he worth most of it? Probably. But it also really straps you for what you could do with everybody else. And when you look at the fact that Rudy Gobert just got traded for and you gave up all those draft picks for him, he's not the guy that's going to get traded, especially considering the fact that he's just coming off a Defensive Player of the Year performance. He's been a elite rim protector for the better part of his entire career, and he's been top 5 over the past 5 or 6 seasons, no less. So no matter how you look at it, the defensive upside is going to be there, especially in the regular season. In the postseason, it wanes a little bit. Yes, that is true, and his offensive game doesn't necessarily make up for it. But considering the amount that you put into obtaining him, that's why they can't just simply trade him away, even though I'm sure some other teams would take him on. Looking overwards, you still have Anthony Edwards, and you're going to have to pay him. Jaden McDaniels, I believe his extension is going to kick in next year. So that's going to be something that has to be taken into account. And then you have guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and some other pieces. Julius Randle is going to be a very intriguing piece on this roster. I don't know how much I trust him as a shooter. I believe last year he shot like 31.4% from three-point range, which is not good by any stretch of the imagination. It's also because of his shot selection and just the overall number of threes that he takes. He does not need to take as many as he does. Do I think that he can fit into a role where he hits more corner threes and more threes from the wings, but off of the catch? I do think that that will happen. But also, people don't respect his three-point shot, so it's going to take a while for that to take hold. Him as a bully ball player, we've seen it happen. That's where he's made most of his bread and butter. That's where he's most effective. I like that for him. But when you have Rudy Gobert on the floor, that means there's not going to be shooting really from your power forward or your center spots, which isn't ideal. Jaden McDaniels, you have to decide, is he going to be the great shooter that he was 2 seasons ago, and particularly in this past postseason where he shot darn near 43% while also taking a really considerable number of attempts over a 16-game sample size? Maybe he could, but he could also be the regular season version of himself that we saw last year where he shot like 33-34%. And those are going to be night and day, and you need him to be the best version of himself in order for Anthony Edwards to have space to do what he does best. Now, we saw Anthony Edwards in the postseason and even in USA Olympic ball hitting his three-pointers at a high clip. And I love that because that shows he's evolving his game a little bit. But as a passer, this does not bode well for his development because now the assists are going to be a little bit harder to come by. Now, is Mike Conley still going to be an elite table setter? Absolutely. No argument about it. Is he a year older? Yes, of course. But I think Mike Conley, with his leadership role, just coaching those guys up, having Rob Dillingham being his understudy, so to speak, I think that that's going to do wonders for his development specifically. And probably 2-3 years down the line, you're going to see a lot of him being just that next guy up. I think that Nickeil Alexander-Walker having the assistance in the backcourt of a Donte DiVincenzo, who is the ideal 3-and-D player. He plays defense at an elite rate. He's one of the best on-ball defenders in the league, bar probably a handful of players. And then from 3 points, like I said, he was a top 5 in makes last season, and his percentages showed that. So when you have a guy that can shoot north of 40%, can hit them at a high enough clip, has a decent sample size, and plays hard-nosed defense and doesn't take anything away from you offensively, that's the shooter that you're going to need to be on the floor with. And I think Anthony Edwards will see a lot of time on the floor alongside Donte DiVincenzo. It just makes sense that way. Defensively, I don't hate this fit. I don't love it either because obviously it took a minute for Karl-Anthony Towns that first season with Rudy Gobert. He did not buy in defensively. They did not look well. They looked clunky. Even at times this season they looked clunky, but he bought in a little bit more. I think if Julius Randle out the gate says, I want to be part of this core. I want to win with you guys. Tell me what I got to do. And then they go ahead and roll out the red carpet and show him what he needs to do, and he actually takes to the defensive scheme, I think that things will work seamlessly because you upgraded, right? You took away Karl-Anthony Towns, who was responsible on D, particularly against Jokic. That was really impressive. Do I think Julius Randle could do something similar? Yes, he has a similar frame, but he's not as tall or as long. That's the only thing. But Donte DiVincenzo is automatically a massive plus, especially in the backcourt, and that takes a load off of a lot of guys when you have somebody that can, number one, space the floor to a very high degree and also play great perimeter / small forward defense, depending on who the other team has on the court. So defensively, I like the fit. Offensively, again, is where the problems start. You still have your table setter in Mike Conley, like I said. You still have Donte DiVincenzo now added in, great for shooting. You have Rob Dillingham as the draftee added on, cool. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, cool. Joe Ingles, responsible, respectable, still has some connection with Rudy Gobert. Could see some pick and rolls there, something responsible, something maybe somebody can tap in and draw some more out of him offensively. But Julius Randle needs to be great offensively. He needs to be phenomenal. He needs a resurgent year. Coming off of what I believe it was a shoulder injury last year, things aren't looking terrific for him. So I would like to see a world where things go perfectly and we get to see the best version of him, the best iteration of Julius Randle we've ever seen. And he's been an all-NBA caliber player before. Defensively, he's had his ups and downs. He's had times where he's locked in, times where he's not locked in. We need that to be locked in. Offensively, the three-point attempts need to cut down. Unless he's wide, butt naked open, which more often than not nowadays he has been because he just hasn't hit the threes. He can't pull up early in the shot clock. This isn't his team, so he should understand he doesn't have to do a lot of stuff. He's not required to be the guy that clock's winding down. I have to take that shot. He doesn't have to do that. The game's not to come down to the ball in his hands very often. It's going to be Anthony Edwards' show. He just has to be a talented and capable role player in the system. And I think that he's capable of doing that. He will not be what Karl-Anthony Towns was. He is not nearly the three-point shooter that Karl-Anthony Towns was. Karl-Anthony Towns, alongside Larry Markkinen, are the best big men shooters since Dirk, and honestly, it's those three and nobody else because they're right there at 7 foot, and it's who else is banging with him? Julius Randle isn't doing that same thing. I think he's like 6'7" right now. So 6'7", 6'8". So I have my questions offensively. The system is going to have to get tweaked a little bit. He's going to have to improve as a player. So the question isn't Donte DiVincenzo. That piece fits seamlessly. You couldn't find a better fit alongside these guys. You have so much perimeter defense. It's just got me licking my fingers, licking my chops. But offensively, DiVincenzo is going to be fine. Julius Randle is not, unless he changes. And that's the thing, because obviously he's been with the Knicks the entirety of his career. Things have gone where they were relying on him entirely to not relying on him some, to obviously you had guys resurgence that come out. You had Brunson take a step forward, and then he kind of got to chill and be like his two-man until he got injured. But the question becomes, who is he really? And honestly, I don't have an answer for that just yet. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you're a fan of either team, let me know. Do you think that it was a good team trade for you specifically? Do you think that you guys came out relatively the same on both ends of the floor? Obviously, Minnesota will have more cap flexibility to do the things that they need to do down the road. And management is kind of being frugal with their bread. I understand. But if you don't like the trade, let me know why you don't like the trade in the comments below as well. With that being said, it's your boy Ray Tubes. Thanks for doing this video. If you made it this far, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, become a member of the channel, or drop a donation to help support the content. And as always, good morning, good evening, and good night, no matter where you're on the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.